This conference will now be recorded.
Megha, are you there?
Yes, sir, I'm there.
You can start.
All right, sir.
National Common Mobility Card. Prepaid card.
Sir, you can hear my voice, sir?
Yes. You can go ahead.
Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Honorable Secretary General Dr. G.P. Agarwal and Dr. Sanjeev Layak, Executive Secretary WASME, I, Megha Chadda, Deputy Director WASME, heartily welcome all dignitaries and participants for live webinar. Prabhu Roy in conversation with Dr. Narendra on role of finance and capital in MSME growth. Let me brief about WASME, a global organization having member representatives in more than 100 countries, spearheading the cause and development and promotion of SMEs worldwide through policy advocacy, information seminar trainings, publication, network linkages, and many more since 1980. WASME enjoys the consultative and observer status of United Nations. Now, I invite Dr. Sanjeev Layak, Executive Secretary WASME, to welcome guests and deliver inaugural address. Let me introduce Dr. Sanjeev Layak. Dr. Sanjeev Layak, currently working as Executive Secretary at WASME, looking after global operation, around 25 years of rich experience in strategy, research, consultancy, projects, contributed 18 research papers and actively associated with 15 ministries of Government of India, Harvard Business Review, and ResearchGate, serving as board committee members of Symbiosis University in Noida, India, NDIM, New Delhi, Mentorex, and IEF, recognized by UNESCO Paris, France, Ministry of MSME, Government of India, SP Jain, Global Management School, Dubai, UAE, Tata Consultancy Services, TCS, Delhi University, Times Group, Economics Times, Bennett University, Greater Noida, India, Mentorex Tiflas, Mumbai, Ashtak India Today, NTPC India, author of a book titled MSME, Crash or Opportunity in COVID-19, published by Lab Publishing Europe. Handing over mic to Dr. Sanjeev Layak, Executive Secretary WASME. Dr. Layak,
Thank you, Megha, for wonderful introduction. Very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of our Honorable Secretary General, Dr. G.P. Agarwal, I, Dr. Sanjeev Layak, Executive Secretary WASME, heartily welcome Dr. Narendra, former Chairman and MD, Indian Overseas Bank, Mr. Prabhu Roy, Senior Advisor, WASME, Ms. Anita Pandit is the Chief Advisor to WASME, for contributing their valuable and precious time to make available for this webinar. My special thanks to Mr. Prabhu Roy, Senior Advisor WASME, for introducing Dr. M. Narendra. I also welcome all the dignitaries and the participants who have taken out their valuable time to participate in this webinar. As you are very much aware of that, MSMEs are the backbone of our economy, and they are contributing 30% to the GDP, 40% more than 40% to the exports, and generating 70 to 80% of the employment. And this COVID first wave and the second wave It has already disrupted our life as well as businesses, and MSMEs are the hardest hit. So today's topic is very, very important, the role of finance and the capital for MSMEs growth. Uh, this finance is the lifeblood of any business, and micro, small and medium enterprises, they are very much desperate to have this kind of finance. Means a few minutes back, I just got this call from the Financial Express newspaper. They were just asking about the delayed payment, and this COVID has already disrupted their businesses, and delayed payment has already stopped their working capital needs. And this webinar will definitely help them to understand what are the different types of ways they can have the finance. As Praveen was just talking in the board of some means renowned institutions like Payment, Najara, they are just planning for IPO. And you might have already seen that some of the companies, they are just coming up with their IPOs and they are very successful. They started with this micro. So our target is very, very important, the nano, micro and the small, because they constitute 99% of the MSMEs, and they are having the turnover less than 5 crores. So the challenges, they have been already struggling with various challenges, and finance is the most important for running of their businesses, sustaining and reviving in this pandemic. As the nation's largest employer, generating more than 111 million jobs, and through 63.38 million enterprises, the MSMEs, they are huge. So, SMEs or MSMEs, they are the backbone of not only Indian economy, they are the backbone of many countries' economy. So, in view of the fact that banks are the predominant source of finance in India, and Reserve Bank of India includes micro and small enterprises in the list of priority sectors lending. Banks have also been advised to achieve year-on-year growth of 20% in the credit to micro and small enterprises, and annual growth of 10% in the number of micro enterprise accounts. The government of India has been making new policies from time to time to support to this particular sector and smooth flow of credit to this sector. And this role of MSMEs in social and economic development are widely acknowledged in spite of its significant contribution to Indian economy. This sector faces many hindrances, and as I have already told you, the main hindrance is the finance. Access to timely and adequate credit at a reasonable cost is essential for growth of this MSMEs, and financial institutions have already limited their exposure to this sector, and because of small ticket size of the loan, higher cost of servicing the segment, and limited ability to provide immovable collateral. And government has already initiated so many schemes to support this MSME sector. And one of the schemes is the CGTFSC plays an important role, that is the credit guarantee. This plays a very important role by providing credit guarantee to MSMEs in India since its inception in the year 2000. Still, due to many bottlenecks from both the sides of the bankers and the entrepreneurs, this sector is not getting timely and adequate credit. So this is means one of the biggest challenge for MSMEs to sustain, revive in this pandemic. I'm not going in details because we have esteemed panelists to discuss on the topic role of finance and capital in MSME growth. Let me introduce our esteemed panelist, Sri M. Narendra, who has vast experience with various Indian banks like Corporation Bank, when he called recognition of being a member of Chairman's Club for 8 years in a row, worked with Bank of India as Executive Director and won many others. Sri M. Narendra joined Indian Overseas Bank as the Chairman and Managing Director. He led the mass outreach programs like Walk-in Bank or campaign in which all the employees of the bank participated. Another similar mass contact program, IOB Smile, was launched to reach the unreached, giving a flip to the financial inclusion program. Sri M. Narendra has been credited with many awards, among them National Award for Excellence in MSME Lending for the year 2010-11 and 11-12, National Award for Outstanding Performance and Implementation of PM EGP in South Zone for 2011-12, the Sunday Standard Best Bankers Award 2013, IBA Banking Technology Awards 2012-13, Best Use of Business Intelligence, National Award for Effective Implementation of PM EGP in South Zone 2012-13 again. During his tenure, IOB stood #1 in sales of LIC products of Life Insurance Corporation of India for 3 consecutive years. And under his dynamic leadership, Indian Overseas Bank is in its 78th year of operations, crossed the 4 lakh crore mark in global business. He has already taken many initiatives. Some of them are massive branch operation, opening of specialized branches, Chain Next to attract youngsters, record number of promotions, large scale recruitment, staff strength across 30,000. So we are very fortunate to have such kind of dynamic leader with us, and the MSMEs will definitely benefit from this talk. Now we have another esteemed panelist, Praveen Roy. Praveen is a serial entrepreneur and he is senior advisor to WASME, co-founder Payment, a B2B Fintech payments company, and worked in government, public and MNC sector as Vice President, CTO, CEO, and Red Herring Asia Top 100 awardees for promising tech startup companies. In addition, Pravi sits on the boards of several private, public, industry organizations like WASME. Pravi is himself built and associated with startups, companies, creating good economic and financial value from within MSME space. Now, I'm just handing over mic to Mr. Praveen Roy and invite him to initiate the discussion. Mr. Roy, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sanjeev Laik, Dr. GP Agarwal, Megha, and Ankita Pandita. A warm welcome to all of you and to Dr. Narendra.
Yes.
Dr. Sanjeev has already spoken about Dr. Narendra. He's very well respected and obviously by the awards that he has won, a well recognized banker in India. He has himself won awards for best MSME lending and also has been instrumental in Indian Overseas Bank being one of the top PSU banks in India and ensured that its growth has been around 4.5 lakh crores from the start of its operations. He is also a very active member of various banking forums, investment forums, and also associated with many younger companies, including startups, as a guide and a mentor. Uh, he has a very unassuming personality, though he is CMD. He has been to my office, and we were very grateful for his presence in the early days where he just walks in without any fanfare. So he is an MSME man because he respects and recognizes young entrepreneurs as also people from the MSME space without any formality. So Dr. Narendra, once again, thank you very much for today,
Yes.
making it convenient to be here. I know that you are required in Delhi for some meeting in the North Block, but you have made it convenient to be here with us. And maybe you can carry some message back from the MSMEs back to the mandarins in the South Block or North Block and other financial ecosystem. So just to quickly start off, Dr. Narendra, that you have been CMD, I know, of IOB, and probably what gave you sleepless nights every day was asset liability mismatches. So, as we all know, banks' assets are giving recurring annuities returns over a long periods, but its liabilities are in the short period. So, what is the magic formula for a CMD of a large bank to ensure that ALM is always matching on the hour every hour?
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev, and as well as Prabal Roy, my good friend, and we have been knowing for last decade or so. And I must congratulate MSME International MSME Association of Noida for doing series of program with Dr. Prabir Roy, who is also your senior advisor. It's my great pleasure to address all the constituents of MSME. But at the outset, I am very sorry that due to some technical problems, there was some delay in my getting in. I am hopeful that we will cover as we go forward. So, as for the first question, as Pravir Roy has mentioned, that banks are playing with in the sense or managing the ALM. ALM means that asset liability management. Unless we have that maturity, what you call mismatch, we cannot really make any return. So it is the banks are, one is the risk management itself is the one of the work of the banks, and in the risk management we have to necessarily make our spread. So ideally, of course, the banks also are having a lot of trust and confidence of the depositors. So particularly the public sector bank, and of course a few new gen banks, that this trust and confidence of the our customers at large, our stakeholders at large, that is the foundation of our business. So it is over a period of time, by the cultural value system and all that, we earn that goodwill. And because of that, we have a continuity of resource support from the general public. And India is a saving country, and we need to encourage savings. And through the public sector bank and all these banks together, we reach out to as many depositors as possible and mop up the saving. And India's saving rate has been very high, and in the recent days after COVID, it has come down. So once you mop up these savings, there are quite a lot of savings and current account deposit. You know, the deposit can be savings, current, as well as term deposit. So the savings and current is a stable resource of the bank. Normally, some of the bank at 35 to 45% is the ratio by which CASA is the stable deposit of the bank. And even among the CASA, there is some are volatile deposit, some are core deposit. So taking into account the withdrawal pattern and also how are the last trend, we take the core part of the resources as the core stable fund of the bank. Other side, we also see what are the maturity of, or what you call, what are the renewal pattern of the term deposit, and how the term deposit have been average has been kept, and that part of the term deposit which are averagely is maintained with the bank, and they are particularly for Indian context, the rate sensitivity of the depositors have been less, and most of them today they go by the past relationship and the current relationship. So the term deposit also partly or maybe major part becomes the stable deposit. So as Prabir Roy has mentioned, the average duration of the liability of the bank may be maximum 1.5 to 2, or maximum maybe below 3 years. Whereas banks now also give lending. They are the assets. So one is the lending, another is investment. Now, investment average duration, because of the government, mostly government investment, what we do, as well as state government, plus a few corporate debt. There, the average duration may be maybe maximum, and commercial paper also. That is a market borrowing of the corporates. So that some of them are very highly liquid and which is very easily we can sell. And government investments are highly liquid. So there also the average duration, we have a what you call trading securities available for sale, held to maturity. Whereas on the assets, if you are giving cash credit, overdraft, or demand loan, which are all payable within 36 months. So they are fairly in the shorter end. But if you are lending for project loan or infrastructure loan, the average duration is long. So there, how do you manage that duration? One is you can have your lending on the construction period, and when it is started, you can give for takeaway, or you can what you call securitization. So even on the retail assets, you can have a securitization. So with this type of what you call management of ALM, and the Basel III also comes into play, and banks are also asked to maintain net funding stable ratio as well as liquidity coverage ratio. So we are managing the liquid risk, we are managing the market risk, and with that ultra short term only we need to be taken care. As far as the medium and long term, if you have the credit line and you have a 100% liquid assets, whenever you want, you can encash it or send it to or transfer. With that, banks are able to manage it better. And now we have a establishment of DFI, Development Finance Institution. So most of the term loans may pass on to the DFI. So the banks will focus on commercial lending. So Pranveer Roy sir, that is the really crux of the ALM. We can talk for more hours because itself is a big subject. Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, Dr. Narendra has spelt out the magic formula. It is not
Yes.
rocket science. It's very simple that you need to strike a very fine balance between short term and long term, and between liquid and illiquid instruments. And the bank managers and the bank management ensures at any point of time that they are NOF positive or net owned funds positive, so that they continue to be a going concern. A lot of people actually, doctor, don't know how banks work. So that's why I asked you this question
Yeah.
as,
Yeah.
what is the business model of a bank? And many people think banks have got money and why are they not giving? But they also have to strike a balance between their creditors and debtors. So this brings me to the second question, which should be of some appeal to all of us in the MSME sector, that uh, banks are there, PSU banks are there in India, but how does the MSME sector, what kind of role does it play in the asset portfolio of, especially of PSU banks? Is it something that the government is hanging around their necks as a priority lending requirement, a must do or a mandatory requirement, or is there an actual business case as to why you all would like to lend to the MSME sectors, especially since the last 1 or 2 years? I have noticed that the loan portfolio for MSMEs has deaccelerated, the loan book has come down, and I know that that is partly due to some MPAs, plus also due to shortage of capital that PSU banks are now faced with due to trying to meet Basel requirements. So they are under pressure probably to lend to MSMEs. Is there a business case for that, or they're just doing it because government wants you to do it?
Prabir Roy sir, that one is of course we normally make a differentiation between the social objective or the national objective as well as the individual need for making a return on the portfolio of the bank. And every bank has to be commercially viable and profitable. That is very important. So with the nationalization 1969, 1980, the public sector bank from those days to now have gone in a big way towards the rural and semi-urban sector, as well as in catering to the those who are unserved. And there is naturally we have to reach out to them through financial inclusion and economic inclusion. As far as the MSME sector, all of us are aware what is its contribution to industrial output, more than 40-50%, and also its contribution to export. Today it is more than 50%, needs to be taken to 70%, 70-75%, and it is also a job. More than I think 11 crore of people have been employed by the MSME, and there are large number of MSMEs which have not come into the banking fold. Say 90% of the MSME out of 63 crores of such micro and small enterprises, only 90% has been outside the formal sector, and the requirement of credit for them is more than 15 lakh crores, whereas what we have lent up to now to the MSME sector has been 19 lakh crores. That is out of maybe around 80 lakh crores of the banking industry, around 19 lakh crores of the MSME sector. And I have worked out even in my IOB that what is the average yield of the MSME sector. And when we have worked out the average yield, the MSME sector has figured better in terms of the average yield and as against the corporate sector. See, corporate sector which are rated better, AAA, AA or single A, they are very rate sensitive and they are very much demanding. So in view of that, the corporate sector has been not able to give proper spread to the bank. Whereas in the MSME sector, of course, one area they also have to improve is the rating, and they have to become investment grade. But the banks, whether it is investment grade or whatever may be, depending on its internal rating, have been funding the MSME. So one is on the average yield concept. Second, MSME, when you lend for micro, small, medium enterprises, you are able to cover a large number of MSME units into your fold, as against the corporate, where the per party exposure may be very large, and you may not be having a large maybe altogether maybe all the around 4,000 to 5,000 corporates may be there. So they're bringing them to your fold, whereas here we are bringing maybe like even under the recent scheme also more than 50-70 lakhs of MSME have been brought under the new that government special scheme, which I will come to later. So here one more thing is you will be dispersing the risk. Whereas the corporate sector, your risk is very higher. And it has so happened that some time back, corporate sector was also doing well. So the banks had gone up to 50-55% exposure. And in the recent past, that sector has been bringing down 33%, because all of you are aware the corporate sector, today they have the alternative access to credit, either international credit or through the equity and bond issue in the domestically. And during this COVID, they borrowed around 10 lakh crores through this route, and they paid back the credit in the bank. And in fact, the bank credit to the corporate sector has been declining. It has never shown a credit growth. Whereas today, our credit to retail sector, small business, personal loans, as well as mainly personal loan means vehicle loan, all that very important sector, and alternative energy and MSME. These MSME per se have reasonably grown, say around 9 to 10% credit growth has done. So the MSME, the risk of default is also less, even if the default is there. Today, there will be like earlier average 6% is the stress, which we will be covering later. But today the stress has gone up. But even then, your capital allocation towards the large pool of MSME vis-a-vis a few corporate where you allocate the capital, it is ideal that I take this type of, and that too, another thing, these assets are spread over geographically. So the geographical risk is also covered. Similarly, sector wise, in the other corporate, you have a few sectors which are sunrising, few are in the downgrade. So there is a sector wise and the or the particular industry level, we have a volatility, whether through the global upheaval, like the commodity prices are going very high now. So or through their regulatory or judicial or mismanagement, those things are very risky there. Whereas here, so the another thing is corporate sectors are even in terms of the non-fund based limits or export limits or in wherever, they don't give us the enough non-fee or fee based income. They are very again competitive, and some of the new generation bank or the foreign bank may compete and they may take that. Whereas our MSME customers are very loyal and faithful to the bank, and all their export business we get, and we also get in share in the fund based non-fund based limits. So in terms of, there are quite a lot of areas when we really analyze, we find MSME sector per se, other than the priority which government and RBI has prescribed in terms of the national priority. Like recently for a startup, RBI has permitted you can give up to 50 crores under the priority sector. And similarly, all the alternative energy or solar or wind power, or even in terms of the hospitality or even health, if you want to put up the health in the rural areas, and there MSME comes into play. So that is the where banks are lending to MSME. And another thing is, suppose I as MSME, I have some savings. I would like to keep the bank where I am the facilities and they are helping me. Whereas corporate, when it comes to his term excess, he may go to mutual fund or he may go to equity market and he may not give us. And these bulk deposits are so volatile. So even in terms of the their contribution to the bank growth, they are one of the or very core part which we value them. So that is the point I am talking, Prabir Roy ji. MSME, it is not due to any compulsion. It may be due to the beginning, it may be due to the priority. Today, it has become a necessity.
That is very good you said that, because I think there is what Dr. Narendra is telling all of us is that there is a genuine business case
Yes, sir.
for banks to lend to MSMEs, and because it gives you net positive contribution to their bottom line and to the business. And as he pointed out very clearly that MSMEs versus corporate or larger institutional organizations, the risk factor is there, the yield is better for them, the risk is less, the default is also is probably comparatively less, and the concentrated exposure that he would have to a larger organization is less. So the message I'm taking away on behalf of my MSME friends is that PSUs, I think, lend around 25% of the total lending is to MSMEs. But yes, going forward, definitely it's a business case, and I hope banks, both in the public and private sector, take this and run with this, because there is a viability and scope for expansion. But having said that, at the same time, post-COVID, or now that the COVID world has started, and Dr. Narendra knows, and we all know that government has introduced new schemes, ECGS, ELGS, equity infusion, hybrid loan and credit infusion, etc., totaling about 6.5 lakh crores, out of which I think three and a half has been disbursed. But even after these provisions being made, I think there's been a negative incremental credit growth uh, of credit offtake from the banks by MSME sector. So I'm just wondering who has benefited from the COVID loan disbursements. Is it only the top few large MSMEs, or the self-employed mom and pop micro mini industries, which Dr. Sanjeev said constitutes about 99% of the MSME base? Who has benefited, and has it benefited rank or file, or just a few? And um, most people probably already who are getting loans have taken loan. Are they only getting it, or now it's available to people who have earlier not had access to cash and credit ecosystem?
Thank you, Prabir Roy ji. That one more that no, it is a fact that the government of India, as a part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat, has really responded to the requirement of MSME sector, small traders, small business, and that particular moment of time between maybe March 2020 onwards, when the lockdown was done, the MSME sector was really hard of cash, and they had also lack of human resources, or because they had to pay them wages. Then they were also not getting the raw materials due to the supply, what you call, the affecting the supply, and the cost of raw material also during that later period went up. So they are hard for working capital. And the banks first started with their own scheme, that all their customers, including corporate, mid corporate or MSME or anybody, whoever wanted a limit, they were giving 10% of the limit as a emergency credit. So after this was moved by the IBA and State Bank of India and all other banks, and once that has been done, this due to the various representation, and government felt, and they gave this scheme of 3 lakh crore of emergency credit guarantee scheme, where 100% coverage is done by the what you call credit trust of the CDB, and the government allocated also that releasing that money to the CDB as and when there are any NPA, and the banks will be given immediately maybe 90% of that, and 10% after they study the paper. So in that way, most the public sector bank and the private sector bank took the benefit. But as Prabir Roy said, only one problem was, this scheme was available for such of the customers who are within the bank already and enjoying limits about 25 crores as on 29th February 2020, and their accounts are less than 30 days overdue, and it is standard as on 31st March 2020. So in the fact that as we have earlier discussed, so many accounts have not come into our banking system. So parallelly, the banks, RBI also gave or through the government of India and on its own, some of the refinance facility to the what you call the NBFC, as well as they made available extra refinance facility to the CDB, of course NABARD also, that is for the housing finance. So with the result, the microfinance institution and NBFCs also, who have a better reach to the MSME with their better model of credit model and credit, and also as a fintech operating as a support system, they are also helped the sector who are not part of the banking system. So that is because their reach is much larger. So but that process of helping those who are not within the bank outside, this is a ongoing process, and it has not been really very much or we are not able to do. There may be some suggestion for that which I will give later. But as far as the today, as rightly said, more than 3 lakh crores have been already sanctioned, and more than 2.80 lakh crores have been availed, and that's how the government has enhanced that to by another 1.5 lakh crores, and 1.10 lakh crore for health sector. They have made a separate scheme, and similarly RBI came with the guideline of around 35,000 crore for health sector to expansion and all, and by step, no, that extra what you call this emergency credit scheme 1, 2, 3, 4, and as on latest. So there have been there were earlier up to 25 crores, then they extended to 50 crores, then they extended to 100 crores, then they extended to 250 crores, then last they extended up to 500 crores, and now that turnover 500 crores or whatever outstanding 500 crores also been removed, and the 26 sectors affected by COVID as per KV Kamath was also included, tourism was included, or your what you call your sports were included, and yes, on latest even civil aviation, all the sectors which are affected. So the basic one question is whether they are affected by COVID. That is a very important. Now this particular scheme has benefited, and really, as Prabir Roy said, during this period credit growth per se is not incremental credit was not coming. So that's where the RBI has brought another scheme that if you give incremental credit to the MSME outside the current your purview of accounts, the more the number you bring, and that will be treated as a separate portfolio, and that money what you are lent will be exempted from your what you call CRR or NDTL requirement, and you will be given the special benefit of that. So that is also one of the way RBI thought that how do we bring the other account to fold. So that is again carrying on. So, and even that with this EC, your export means emergency credit scheme only the one which resulted in the incremental credit. And as I earlier said, the overall credit growth is around 5.5%. Whereas this particular sector, if you see the year-to-year March, it has grown by 9%. So maybe in the current year again, with that 1.5 lakh crores and 1.10 lakh crore, they will, but only my one worry is MSME per se today, even if they take earlier 10%, 20%, another 10%, 40%, some of them 40% also. Now you are increasing that more leverage of debt. Now at this enhanced credit, even with the repayment earlier was 4 years, today 5 years. Even with the 5 years, are they able to make repayment? With the 1 year or maybe 2 years of repayment holiday, another 3 years of repayment, I'm not sure for that enhanced credit, MSME will be able to give the what you call repayment. That's where the instead of debt, equity infusion, government has given 100% guarantee. Now the same money could have been given as a equity to the MSME, and MSME could be said that as per our other scheme of subordinate or what you call the debt for stressed MSME up to 20,000 crores. Another one has been fund of funds for 50,000 crore. This money could have been given as equity with the instruction that 7 years or whatever required repayment holiday, and within 10 years they have to be paid. And another thing is, just like these money which are given as equity, some of these MSME will really mature and they will be the case for going into the equity market. Like last time I think around 300 MSME and another additional from NSE, they raised around 6,000 crores of capital, and today their market capitalization is 29,000 crores. So there are anybody who is investing even through the government source, they have a chance to make them stronger, and they are able to get a good valuation also. So that if they go for the public issue, even otherwise, their repayment capacity will increase at the later part of the what you call evolving situation. So that is one area I thought that that 20,000, 50,000 fund and all, even in the 20,000, now what is utilized is only 146 crores. Some 12 banks have made use. So the government should push the equity scheme still higher as that of the debt scheme, so that MSME customer who are matured or who are really export oriented, they will not have the burden of extra bulge in the credit, which may take away major part of the profit, and they may not utilize that for expansion of technology, expansion of market, or improvement in product quality, and various things which are absolutely essential if they have to be competitive in the international market. So I think that is the only area, but for the current immediate requirement, these schemes have come in handy. And apart from that, there is a TRDS, another scheme where all trade receivables are to be registered with the trade discounting exchange, and corporates should not delay the payment. In fact, if the corporates pay the money in time, including government, प्रवीर रॉय जी एमएसएमई का क्रेडिट का जरूरत ही नहीं है, because there are a lot of receivables are held up. So that is where within 45 days they should pay. And in the exchange now more than I think PSUs and all have registered. And currently again, sir, RBI is going for a government for amendment to the factory bill, means factoring bill, so that NBFCs and others are also will be allowed to start a factoring, and factoring of domestic bills, factoring of international bills, that will also enable. So if their realization of receivables are in time, their raw materials are acquired in time, not just holding it in time, MSMEs can manage with the lesser working capital. So that is the, but you know, whatever may be, today that has come handy, sir. Yeah.
Fantastic. So, Doctor, you have taken a very objective view of the role of banks and MSMEs, and while you are talking about the how banks can help MSMEs in a traditional manner, you have also flagged that going forward, the bank will have limited capacity to be able to handle extra loans and debt that is due to it. And for that, you are recommending more different instruments like fund of funds, equity conversion, subordinate debt, access of funding against receivables, etc., outside the formal institutional in advance format. So I think what he's saying is that banks are there, they are stepping up to the plate, they are helping MSMEs in giving a stimulus. But going forward, if they take too much over exposure to MSMEs, then
No,
it's
sir.
too much
Praveen Joy
at
ji, Praveen,
NPAs, then we may
Praveen
need to
Roy ji,
back.
मेरा point bank का नहीं, even MSME, if they increase their debt to equity high and high, their capacity to repay will be lower, and that debt burden will be there for them. So ideally, instead of debt, these 3 lakh crore, if that have been given as equity and pay with the longer repayment will be there 10 years. That would have come handy to the MSME. Banks, of course, we have no much difficulty in taking exposure higher. And in fact, our endeavor is to reduce the corporate exposure and go for more MSME and personal loans and your vehicle loans, mortgage loans, and in the retail sector, wholesale trade, that and professional sector, that will be there. Yeah. Please, sorry.
No, that's good because what again you're saying is that the net burden to an MSME is lower if you do equity and take
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
some
Correct.
dividend, etc., rather than burden the already burdened MSME with more EMI, higher
Yeah,
interest, higher
correct.
principal. That is
Yes.
very important, and people like SIDBI and other fund of funds hopefully will do more equity financing with long-term returns profile rather than a classical loan and interest advance kind of model. So
Correct.
suppose now, Dr. Narendra, I know you do meet your colleagues in banking sector and in government. Supposing you had an audience with finance minister, what are the 3 things that you as an ex-banker would tell them that they should do for helping MSMEs come out of today's crisis and become the engine of growth for India? Because MSMEs contribute nearly 36-37% of GDP, 50% of exports, and 110 million people are employed in MSMEs. So I think it is the backbone of India, but it is also going forward can be the engine of growth. So what are 3 things that you will tell top finance planners that they can or should be doing for MSMEs beyond what has already been announced or what they are already decided upon?
Prabir Roy ji, that is my point, that today government per se has responded very well. And if you go to the MSME site, you will see there are 100 or so many schemes which are done by the government through the MSME. And there is a Khadi Village Industry Commission, then the National Small Scale Industries Association, then skill building, and so many areas of even technological support, upgrade. There is a capital for incurring, there is a interest subsidy, and even for exporters, there is an interest subsidy of 3 to 5%. And apart from that, overall also, there is a what you call additional benefit of if there is in your duties or tariffs, there will be again reimbursement which the government is doing from the earlier MEI scheme to another scheme. So the government has responded. One area what I feel that these schemes are available, but have they reached out to all the stakeholders, and have the banks and other agencies who are involved that they are fully aware of that? I may not be 100% to say that we are aware. So we need to popularize all these schemes. Like when our Prime Minister joined, he gave a call to the bank that let us open our Prime Minister's Jan Dhan Yojana. That is through the JAM also, which are having Jan Dhan account, then Aadhaar and mobile connectivity. Today, 42 crores of accounts have been opened and they are having around 1.3 lakh crores of balance. And most of them are women and they are all operated. And there are, I think, around substantial 62 or 82 schemes of the government, including fertilizer subsidy, diesel subsidy, or whatever. They are rooted that account. Now, I feel that the Prime Minister should give a call that all those MSMEs which are not covered by the bank credit, and including maybe Jan Dhan account, why not including the rural agriculture sector or everywhere, and the cottage industry, all the small activity there, in the next 6 months or after this COVID and all have gone, if there is a call is given by the Prime Minister of India and all the FM also, and the banks can rise up to that and cover as many such customers which are now the burden are thinking that they are outside the purview and they are in the informal sector. Yeah, and one more thing is GST is already made compulsory. Second, PAN is also made compulsory. So the KYC and all that is there. And today, artificial intelligence, machine learning and all, data analytics also become easy. There are civil type of information where you can analyze the behavior also, which fintechs and are all taking care. So the bank and fintech and the collaboration way, if we make a campaign and respond to that call and with the target, whatever is given, an entire workforce of the a few allocated to that, as well as the government, all those MSME agencies, if are all working together, the base of the customer who are in the bank will expand. So that is my first suggestion, for which we need their critical push and vision and motivation, and they can be further recognized for the efforts. Second, sir, that you take for example Maruti cluster, there are so many MSME and others or companies who are supplying material to Maruti, and like
Right.
in Gurgaon and all, or maybe in Gujarat where they have another. Similarly, in the automobile sector, they do the investment in the small sector, and all the cluster will become supporting unit to the Maruti. Now, just like we are given so many benefits to the corporate by way of tax benefit, then now like the PLI scheme, you have 13 sectors where you give 1,95,000 crores to corporate. Why not the corporate take MSME into their fold? And as I earlier said, they if they invest in the equity of the MSME, to that extent you give them some benefit in way of any of your benefits, like in PLI we are giving benefit. So one area is I want, there are around 300 400 clusters in the all over India. There are quite a lot of units which are supporting the our corporate or mid corporate, and some of them are really matured. So one area, another suggestion, sir, through the government intervention and the collaboration of the government and corporate, there can be equity infusion in the MSME by them, and which are long term, and some of them also should be taken up by these anchor investors for bringing all the management governance or transparency or full disclosure, good financial statement, and also becoming a mentoring and handholding. And that also can be a government agency or professionals like bankers and others, they can be mentored, so that these MSME, as government plan, that they should contribute 75% exports. And we similarly, that other one is, there is a third one is, there are some 1,000 odd items who have been identified that India should become self-reliant to them, and we have to achieve the Atmanirbhar. Now, why not promote this MSME to invest in that or adopt those import substitution product, and give them all the ecosystem and help, and also create another important, one more suggestion I will give to the government, that they have to create in the new rising sector like all these, they have to create what you call total infrastructure development. Then they have to also create innovation hub, and they have to also make a common artificial intelligence, machine learning and all that technology in place. And with that, with the lesser charges, these people can adapt all that and they become global standards in terms of their quality and rating, then the global our customers or who are importers, they will also embrace these customers, because they find that they are all in line with the sustainable development goals. They have taken what you call social govern or your what you call governance model also, and that will really enable us to compete with the our neighboring China economy. And we mean what we mean, and we do what we require. And if that effort is done by all the stakeholders, with all this ecosystem of collaboration, regulator, policy makers, as well as the practitioner or implementer by the bank and financial institution, then our MSME will really come up to that level. And currently, sir, the contribution to GDP also can go up to 50%. So there is hardly now around 30%. So that today the corporates have become more global, and sometimes they contribute to the GDP of another country, whereas our MSME are truly national and they are contributing to our growth. So we need to support them. These are some of the suggestions I thought they are worth giving attention.
Oh, very good suggestions, Dr. Narendra. In fact, I was in Indonesia, and in Indonesia, MSME sector is contributes nearly 97% to exports and 60% to GDP, and 99% to the total employment. So can you imagine how critical MSME sector is in many countries, even in the USA, Philippines? They're one of the largest MSME bases in the world. But I think I take a very good view on your suggestions for making some of these schemes more popular and aware amongst the rank and file or the long tail of MSMEs. As you said, government has 82 or 87 schemes, but if you ask me or if you ask any of the members here, I think they will not even be able to name one or two or three, let alone 87. No, so that is one suggestion of yours. The second one was how corporates can also play a role of a quasi bank or pseudo bank by putting some ancillaries under their wings and incubating them, mentoring them, accelerating them. That's a very well suggestion. But when goes to banks, what suggestion would you have? How can the MSME owner or entrepreneur or the executive get more from the banker than he's getting now, because he's not aware? Number one. Number two, when he goes to in front of the bank, what are some tips you want to give that person, that how to negotiate better so that bank can also market and cross market some of its products? Also, MSME can learn more about some products which they are not used to. So any tips you want to give to all of us where we will become more efficient when we are talking to banker, and then there can be a jugal bandi then between the bank and the MSME, because both understand each other and are then picking up the beat from each other.
Prabal Roy, that is also a very pertinent question. One is that I classify that in two categories. One is micro and small enterprises who are not in such a highly matured and they are in the smaller level, but niche level. But there are other micro, small, and medium enterprises who are really matured, and they are in the poise for big changes or big growth. Growth is both there, but they are on a little different footing. Now, as far as the smaller and micro enterprise and all, one is the bank's formalities of credit approval process, and all that should become very simple. Of course, we have Prime Minister has implemented a 59-minute loan in principle approval, which may later get into turnaround time within a 10 to 15 days. And I saw that quite a lot of have been availed, and quite a lot of around 2 lakh or whatever amount of crores of amount have been dispersed through that. So that portal is very active. All people are taking. So one area is for very objective type, very specific wise, and very activity wise, either on the inventory side or on the receivable side or on the small term loans wise. The whole appraisal part should be brought to a simplicity, and the MSME micro enterprise should be honest enough, Like, take the example of, like, some in the other microfinance, Bandhan Bank and all. They had developed around 40,000 crores portfolio over a period of time. Now, that is how, where you talk to them, where you are able to understand their language, talk to the and understand their body behavior, then understand localized business, localized life cycle, and the localized requirement. And if you are aware of the credit cluster, if you are aware of that on a cash flow basis method rather than collateral based, you and anyhow up to 2 lakh crore, sorry, around 2 lakhs under the credit guarantee trust, you are getting a coverage. Now today that is also around 2,38,000 crores have been covered that. And that is really a very good coverage where other than the latest scheme. So there should not be difficulty. So to that extent, MSME also, or the micro and small, should become more transferable, means transparency should be maintained. They should be true to this financial statement, and they should get registered with the GST, and they should come to PAN and other mode with the Aadhaar and all. They should become instead informal sector to formal sector, and through the bank, that was the SS2 finance. That all became together, and they should also take insurance. Then they should take a pension product. They should also take care of their employees, and they must also make a little joint ownership. Now, one more thing I'm suggesting to MSME, that the promoter keeps the majority of the ownership, and they may be a proprietor, they may be a partner, or they may be so it is not a company. Now ideally they must closely go for corporatization of the MSME, and other side they must take some of the core staff into their fold and give the employees what you call stock option scheme, and make them joint member of the MSME. Now there you find that there is a joint ownership, there is a joint involvement, and there will be new ideas also. So the MSME also should adapt new ideas and a new area of operation. They must the new technology again, that today nobody can be aware from, or what you call illiterate as per the technology, and these analytics and other things are becoming so very important. Now MSME also will have to, in the one more thing is, today their entire production process are becoming simplified and totally through the technology it is being processed. Now small MSMEs through the government scheme, they should adopt the technology upgradation scheme and get the subsidy, and the bank should also lend to them for the remaining part. So in that way, the getting transparency, getting management proficiency, then with the true financial statements, and maintaining a cash flow methodology where, and liquidating, like self-liquidating finance. Suppose bills is a self-liquidating, or not that all the credit gets into a permanent credit and there is no inward credit coming at all. Sometimes most of the MSME or others know that core availment becomes peak and it remains peak only throughout. Now that may be the case with the corporate also. So what we have to see is that, so today that the government has, RBS also, that they cannot open current account other than the lender. So with the result, their personal drawings also to be little regulated. See, normally when you get good money, including exporters, your personal requirement, personal asset, personal drawings become more. Now ideally that should be a certain percent. I don't say that they should not draw, but there must be majority of their money should be plowed back. And when it comes to like this COVID and all, what is that liquidity you possess, and what are those assets which are liquid, and your non-core assets which are illiquid do not come in anywhere useful. So even for corporate or MSME, such non-core assets or extra land, suppose ideally that normally banks take as security for above higher limits. Otherwise, some of such extra land or your personal asset which are found that today not required, you must be able to, when the good time, to sell it. I don't say when the market is depressed you don't sell, but whenever good time, sell it and bring it back as a capital. So if that type of methodology is followed, these MSME will have a longer survival, and they have a longer growth, and they will be encouraged by all the stakeholders. Other one which are already matured, I say that today it is better they take some professional merchant bankers, or including bankers, and help them to slowly in the next 5 years, with all the global standards and the global adoption of accounting policies, India AS, in all that respect, and they become eligible for public issue or their IPO. And if that IPO is come, parallelly, some of the venture capital fund, private equity fund, or special purpose vehicle fund, or the government route, they are including CDB. CDB investors money in this bank. And earlier, no, I had to know that State Bank had also had a seed fund. Now, they must all encourage those MSMEs to come into the market, and you will also in the turn get the exit where you are getting your higher valuation, and your rate of return will be much, much higher than what you are given through that route. So this is the ecosystem which MSME should follow, and I'm sure as you go forward, this is the model by which they will enhance their own value and enhance the economy value, and they will reach to a global level, sir.
Very good. So just like banks have to also change their game, so also we must admit that MSMEs also have to be more inclusive, more transparent, and slowly become professional as they go along, so they can tap credit and cash and advances from non-banking sources like venture capital, seed fund, private equity, and as Dr. Narendra said, at some point, go IPO in the small cap side in the NSE as a small MSME platform. Either they can unbundle the value there for everybody. So both sides have to clap, both hands are required to clap, and MSME also has to reorient and their mindset actually more than anything else. So my last question to you, Doctor, and you are a big champion of fintech. In today, I was listening to you. Every alternate sentence you're bringing fintech in and etc., which is very heartening to note for all of us. What role does fintech have to play in the next phase of MSME funding? Now, yesterday, you must have seen SBI is tied up with 25 fintech companies for various things, lending, NBFC digital lending, NBFC digital and lending, NBFCs digital lending, NBFCs have come up. They are lending to MSMEs. Payment companies also, pure play payment companies are also started lending small value, small value, but highly frequent loans, insta credit, insta settlement kind of loans to smaller businesses, low value, but they are also getting into the place. So do you feel that fintech going forward will have to take some load of credit and capital and financing for the MSMEs, and we should depend less on government and PSU banks and normal large private banks?
Prabir Roy ji, that is the very good development in India, that along with the commercial banking or scheduled commercial banking and other regional rural banks and all other agencies, another important source of what you call finance as well as reach has happened through the fintech. And other than in other area of e-commerce or in all area like health or today, there is no sector where startups have disrupted the normal thing and they have made a big entry. And the way in which some of the IPO is coming today through these companies and the valuation they are getting, so whatever losses or other things they incurred in the initial period or maybe growth stage or in the next growth stage, today they are all able to make a big killing. So that is from those companies. But as far as the fintech, that is we have slowly found that in spite of these our reach, like now 60,000 branches maybe there in the rural area, and similarly maybe 30,000 in the urban area. So the banks have reached out to the rural area. Other than banks also utilize customer service center, they also use business correspondent and business facilitator, and there are self-help group, there are joint liability groups, there are quite a lot of agencies or point of sale which RBI has permitted the bank. And today, for example, I am coming to the fintech little later now, here only, that you take the example YONO of the State Bank of India introduction. Now, recently in the COVID period, they have not only like it is a transaction banking platform. It has also resulted in customer acquisition as well as customer credit assessment, credit giving, and all the agriculture loans were taken through the YONO. And today, maybe including in the emergency credit scheme, at this rate, speed around 50 lakhs could be given facility of around 3 lakh crore. It is only through technology. Entire their application, their consideration, and the parallel documentation. People actually, bankers were also under stress in working through the COVID, but all have happened. So technology per se plays a very important role, and banks have to adapt technology, and that's our today acknowledging. And parallelly they have the machine learning and artificial intelligence, so that the data also is all lesser asked with the customers. Today, with the behavior of the customer within the bank and outside the bank, if it is all integrated, why should I ask the customer? So the agency, civil, and all others, from all the sources, I integrate the data. And once I integrate the data, I know the borrower wise, what is his spending pattern, what is his saving pattern, all that, and what is his credit rating. Then why should I ask more information from him, except maybe some our personal talk to make that these data are perfect. And that is the where today that has enabled that, other than the bank, also fintech role. So there are fintech who are only in helping the bank, because one thing is banks have also taken fintech on collaboration basis. Banks do not consider fintech as a competitor. Second, like also rightly said, State Bank or some of the banks, including foreign bank and private sector bank, they also invest equity with this fintech. That has happened. Third is Reserve Bank of India has started an incubation center where all the application of the fintechs are made, and out of that, like last one, the 2 of them in released for commercial use. So that is another area where fintechs are able to get the client in the sense bank also collaborator much faster if they go through that route. And so some of the fintechs are with this data and all, they are helping the bank in origination. Now, along with that origination, and they know the what you call appraisal part also. They can analyze all the data and say these are investment grade, these are the higher investment grade, this competes with the 60, 80, 70% ranking. So you can, so the credit decision is by the bank, whereas they provide the lot of source. So that is the through the API, which is maybe through whatever middleware integrated to the bank, they get the data, and that seamlessly goes to the bank and centralized processing that gets sanctioned, and the final credit is delivered again through the payment mode. Today there are the government, RBI, as well as all that through the UPI or other private Google Pay or payment or anybody, the money goes very seamlessly. So that is the one route. There are other fintech who also applied for NBFC license. Now, if they join the fintech and NBFC license, and some are maybe peer-to-peer. Again, there are peer-to-peer lending. There are investors are found and they are lending. Other that also will have to little qualify as NBFC as per the latest guidance. Now, other than that also, there are, once the fintech comes to the maturity stage, there are quite a lot of investors who will be investing in them. So without the route of credit, they have the what you call capability of large so many funds by which they can again lend it to the such of those sectors which are qualifying from them from their internal assessment. So then again, all those as you rightly said, the small finance bank, then the microfinance which became small finance bank, as well as the microfinance institution, and the your payment bank also, they are permitted for a small level finance also. Now that model has also supplemented the efforts of reaching to the unreached, and this fintech can do. And now along with that, one more has come with the RBI, that co-lending. So now RBI has enabled that, let the fintech or other NBFC, particularly NBFC also, when they found the liquidity crisis, let them find out the customers which are in the internal assessment of the bank, they are qualifying for that, and let them give 10%, 90% I give, so that you get the reimbursement of the credit immediately to the NBFC. So again, he can churn it for further lending. So this ecosystem which are now developing in the banking industry, here as you go forward, some of the payment space as well as the lending space, particularly the smaller lending, and with the totally technology based solutions that will be occupied by the MSME as per your fintech, and that benefit again, it's like, you know, even a fintech mop up a certain portion of the assets, and when they find that these assets are qualifying for a better rating by CRISIL or whatever, now that can be again downloaded to the bank, and bank can purchase under securitization route. So some of the banks may depend on them on origination and co-lending, with that reaching to the real needy customers in a very advanced technology base will become easier. And the experience of the fintech has been, other than maybe one or two, or maybe exceptionally one or two maybe misgovernance, otherwise it has been 100% success. So, and the banks also insist for certain governance standards to them, and on their governance standard, when they find these are really robust system, and also that is another important is cyber security. There is a otherwise hacking of this data, and these data are all very precious data, either through the bank data or the other data. If it is anywhere hacked, then no, you will be losing, and somebody may not sell them on commercial route and again be say in the front that I am very what you call true. So bank has to also adopt cyber security and all other method to see that this risk of their merging the API with their main system or in the with the middleware and separately server, that don't affect the bank system, because today RBI also comes very heavily if there is any such cyber security issue, which you are aware. So all these have to be kept in way, and I fully endorse the role played by the fintech, sir.
Very good. So very good ideas and of yours. And as I see it going forward, credit companies or credit institutions will use more technology. Technology companies will start dabbling in credit products. And the third thing which I understood from you is data will become the new collateral.
Correct.
So which I call risk tech. So data companies will also get into credit by seeing your profile of transactions, your profile of orders, your profile of receivables, your profile of payables. Based on that, AI and ML will make instant judgments to give the MSME person a loan just there and then itself in 59, not in 59 minutes, but in 59 seconds. So with
Yeah.
this, I think you have charted out the landscape for how MSMEs can look for newer sources of funding, finance, cash, and credit going forward. Thank you for your time and your very wise words and thoughts and ideas. Do you have any question for me before I wind up and hand it back for Q&A?
Prabir Roy Saab, yourself is a very big payment gateway. So you have a, of course, either on your own or with the bank collaboration. You also have quite a lot of data also, and you are also part of the ecosystem. So I am glad that this forum, which you are also what you call senior advisor or special advisor, this will our expertise, knowledge like yours or ours and all should be taken benefit by Dr. Sanjeev Lekha and all other members of the this International MSME Association, and we become partner or a mentor to the growth of the MSME and also the coming to handy for them. So this particular webinar or the continuous interaction which you have been doing, I think the last 1.5 years, is really a great work by you. And I thank organizers and you also especially. And today the questions are very what you call challenging and daunting, but they are very useful. So I have been my own humble way try to make some what you call response to this question. So I wish you all the best, sir, and we will be futuristically in association wherever our services are needed. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor, and thank you for the kind words and for the recognition of the entire WASME team of Dr. Sanjeev
Yes.
Layak, Dr. Agarwal, Megha, Pandita. They've all actually provided the platform for MSME people to bring people like you on board and share your experience and your advice and your knowledge. And with this, I want to thank you once again for your time and hand it back to Dr. Sanjeev Layak for moderating any questions that the participants and delegates might have. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Sanjeev Layak.
Thank you, Praveen and Narendra sir. Wonderful speech and the knowledge you have already shared, the experience you have already shared with the MSME members over here. They will definitely benefit. Now the platform is open for question answer. Any question, the participants can directly ask the questions to the panelists.
Yeah, so that's a very good thing. So, Sanjeev ji, can I put in my word?
Yes, yes. You can.
Okay, so this was a very, very enlightening conversation and input by Dr. Narendra. I must congratulate him for putting it in a very brief this thing to all of us. We are really gained a lot of information through your whatever you have been imparting the knowledge. Now, my point is that one or two things that we find, because we are at WASME, we are helping the entrepreneurs, also MSMEs, in obtaining the funds and all. So now we find that this could be my personal opinion also, that in fact, in the banks, rather than having a person taking up the entire responsibility, sometimes, the managers are sort of a little hesitant because they feel it may not fall back on them, because even after their retirement, they are sometimes brought to this thing that if you have provided certain loan, so why, how, and all that. So maybe they should have a committee where, there may be there could be 2 members or more than 2 members. So this hesitancy of providing loan to the deserving MSMEs, we could do away with this and it could be a solution. Second thing is that I would like to say that, there are clusters. So we are trying to export oriented MSMEs. So how do we go for that? Because when we have some MSMEs who are holding orders also, export orders. So, and they are they are in existence, but they're very small. So how do we go about that? Because they have the export orders and at the same time, they are not able to avail the funds. And third, my point is that I think we must go to the clusters all over, like Ludhiana we have. There they are making all the woolens, and we have some people who are interested. We are providing them some help also. And similarly, then we go to Bihar. We have food processing, makhanas, and all that. There also we have. So I think we have to provide them some hand holding there as far as technology is concerned. As far as the digital information platforming of AI, robotics, and all is concerned, now we know the chip manufacturing is there, and how to go about that to identify. We have identified company in Taiwan and all where who can be brought in to make the chips here in India. So we need to be really, really proactive. So can you just shed some light on that, Dr. Narendra?
Yeah, thank you, Anil Pandit.
Yeah.
Anil, no? Yeah.
Anita.
Anita Pandit, thank you for your all very important question. So one is that today, whether in branch, whether in zonal office, or whether in what you call central office, these MSME, there are some specialized branches, and other than that, also if they are taking up the proposal, sometimes from the origination he can do and he can send it to the MSME branch, or other than that, there is a centralized MSME processing with hub and spoke also in the regional level MSME processing, as well as in the smaller cluster also there will be MSME processing center. Other than very small credit which can be at the branch. So about 10 lakhs normally that is done at the cluster. Then we have parallelly the banks have introduced certain divisional manager on the MSME on the marketing part and in the as a customer relationship officer. So they are also just like in agriculture field officer, they are all spread over. So they know the local customer, local activity, like what you said, food processing, or maybe leather related work, or maybe copper, or like you are very no Murshidabad or whatever, or Agra, some you are related to local activity like your I think logs and other things. So all these cluster, these people are quite aware. And another thing is there are CDB related cluster study. There is banks also take cluster for development, and they do the cluster study. And on the cluster taken study, we can devise scheme relating to that cluster. So each, even though there is a general scheme, there can be specific scheme for that cluster. Second is about your committee. There is a approval grid process. Even in the credit processing center, there is a approval grid. So there are people who are marketing, people are credit processing, people are credit risk management, and somebody may be without any target of lending. So like that, 5-6 people. Suppose in the head office, it is the general manager. In the zonal office, maybe one AGM, one chief manager, one senior manager, or in a smaller cluster, it may be 2-3 managers. So they go through this proposal. After the approval grid has been cleared, then it goes to committee of sanction. Now the banks have also introduced committee. So it's not a single person takes a decision. It is a committee approach. This was adopted after like a state bank had this system, so that there will be joint ideas in sanction and joint risk management also. So this has been done. Other than small loan, I said 10 lakhs below, that can be given by the branch manager, and that goes by his deputy, and he may be consulting each other. So that is also in place. And so that is and see, ideally that anybody who has done some good decision, all credit decisions cannot be 100% right also. There will be a few which may go bad, and that MSME and all, some of them may be economic situation, some of them may be due to some promoters related, some of them may be due to any sector wise volatility. So many reasons are there. Now that being the case, if there are any mala fide and bona fide will have to be found out, and it is not that everybody will be questioned. So that is another issue. It may be applicable to some of the recent large accounts, that may be reason. So to that extent, generalizing it to at law level, because banking is taking risk, and we have to take risk with the calculated and measured credit risk. If we don't take, we don't make any earning. So that is another thing. Now if there are export orders, so some of the small micro, I also have another suggestion that ideally there can be another MSME who has a large credit limits from that, and why not he route that export order through that another unit who are enjoying the limit. So this is called a way of consolidation or merger or amalgamation or acquisition. That is another suggestion to the MSME. They have to become stronger. And but if they are smaller also, and if they have a rapport with the branch, and they know the they can contact the SSI officers who are there, and they can explain. And whereas need based, and that too self liquidating. Export means you give a packing credit and all, and when the bills come, it gets into the post shipment credit, and it is self liquidating. So small limit can be given. There will not be any difficulty for exporters to get. And another is financial literacy, digital awareness. And today, the government has ensured that more than 6 lakh villages, through the around 5.5 lakhs villages have been covered through the financial inclusion, and through the credit counseling and financial literacy centers and the skill development center, and both RBI and government as well as the banks, they have reached out. And the digital awareness is also increasing. In fact, during the COVID also, 95% transaction done through the digital. So I hardly believe that in any area there may be necessity to educate the people, because they know there will be educated person in their family who will adopt the technology. So there could be a joint effort for that. With that, I think I have answered your all questions.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other question from other participants? Any other question from any other participant? No. So thank you, sir. We have already taken your valuable inputs and suggestions, and Praveer is already there. He will
So
connect with you.
we'll
And
congratulate
thank
Prabir
you.
Roy also. Prabir Roy is the creator of this, and Sanjeev will
Yes, yes.
like yes. Thank you.
Yes, 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 sir.
Yeah.
So we will definitely have the long-term relationship. Your valuable inputs and the suggestions certainly help our MSME participants over here. And those who have not participated in this webinar, they will see the YouTube channel so that they can have the better understanding of this particular subject. So thank you for your valuable and precious time for this webinar, Dr. Narendra and Mr.
Thank you.
Roy and Anita Pandit ma'am and all the participants, those who have already taken out their valuable time for this webinar. I hope they have already received so many valuable inputs from both the panelists. They are very important for MSME's growth. One feedback form is in the chat box. You can just give the valuable feedback to have any kind of improvement in the future. Thank you once again, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank all the participants.